What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma and today I'd like to go over 10 of what I think are some of the worst combat and assault rifles in Borderlands history. Now before we start, it was tough to pick just 10 combat and assault rifles from all of the games. After all, most of the combat rifles from Borderlands 1 are pretty good, and most of the truly awful assault rifles are from Borderlands 2 rather than the pre-sequel. So I think you'll find that this particular list is pretty heavily skewed towards Borderlands 2. I also just want to go ahead and say that there are definitely some awful assault rifles that I missed. So if you don't see an assault rifle that you feel deserves to be on this list, feel free to leave a comment about it in the comments section below. But without further ado, I am pleased to present 10 of what I think are some of the worst assault rifles in Borderlands history, starting now. Number 10. The Sentinel Combat Rifle from Borderlands 1. While not an especially god-awful weapon or anything, the Sentinel is kinda low tier when it comes to combat rifles from the first game. This is mostly because aside from the potential elemental accessory that can spawn on this weapon, a lot of the other parts on it are predetermined, which is kinda bizarre when you consider that the Sentinel's special effect comes from the weapon's material/skin and its unique scope. For whatever reason, you can't get parts to spawn on the Sentinel that would improve the weapon's attributes. For example, you can't get certain combat rifle barrels like barrel 4 or barrel 5, which would help reduce projectile spread while also increasing damage. Or you also can't get this weapon to spawn with stock 5 for combat rifles, which is often considered to be the best stock because it provides great recoil control as well as no penalty to the weapon's reload speed. As is, the Sentinel can spawn with stock 2, which is actually known for decreasing reload speed, and it also spawns body 4, which is known for decreasing fire rate, while also increasing recoil at the expense of better damage. Unquestionably, what would make this weapon better was if it could spawn with a wider variety of parts, and because it can't, that puts it at a significant disadvantage, as premium weapon parts could have made a huge difference in how this weapon performs. But if you want this gun, it can be acquired as a quest reward for completing the Jack's Other Eye side quest mission in Borderlands 1. Number 9. The Seeker Assault Rifle from Borderlands 2. The Seeker is a great example of a weapon that could have been amazing, but ultimately it just missed the mark. For the uninitiated, the Seeker is a Torgue assault rifle that fires rockets that home in on enemies, and while you can't go AFK from your keyboard and have this weapon just work, as long as you're aiming at or have the crosshairs on an enemy, the bullets should home in and hit your intended targets. The primary problem is that the Seeker achieves its homing projectiles, as well as improved accuracy and high base damage, at the cost of significantly reduced fire rate. To give you some idea, I've seen Seekers that have a fire rate of around 1 to 2 displayed on the item card, and while that may work on some weapons like snipers and shotguns, it's pretty much a death sentence on assault rifles and other similar single projectile weapons. Plus, it's also worth mentioning that because this assault rifle has homing projectiles, it's practically incapable of critical hits. So not only are you getting a weapon that can't crit, but you're getting it on a weapon that already has fairly low DPS potential already. Ultimately, I think the Seeker is a victim of balancing. My guess is that the developers over at Gearbox thought that a fast-firing, homing projectile assault rifle would just be way too overpowered on gauge with 600 anarchy stacks. It's a shame, but if you want to mess around with this gun, the Seeker can be acquired from the Seraph vendor in the Dragon Keep DLC that's located at Flamerock Refuge. Number 8. ETech Assault Rifles in general from Borderlands 2. I don't think it's all that controversial to say that ETech weapons as a whole are pretty bad. This mostly has to do with the game balance between difficulties, as ETech weapons are balanced to be great in both normal and true Vault Hunter mode, but by the time you reach Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, you're going to find that ETech weapons are practically unusable. And this is mostly because of the poor critical hit bonus that ETech weapons have, and it's also because of their high ammo consumption. So on average, you're going to be expending twice as much ammo as you normally would to ultimately deal less damage on a critical hit. And on Ultimate Vault Hunter mode difficulty in particular, where you have to min-max to get the best damage possible, most ETech weapons simply aren't worth your time. However, when it comes to ETech assault rifles in particular, these weapons already get decreased critical hit bonus from being assault rifles. Then on top of that, you get a decrease to the weapon's critical hit damage because it's an ETech weapon. And this combined can make the damage discrepancy between performing a critical and a regular body shot almost negligible. It's kind of a shame because ETech ARs have pretty decent recoil and high fire rates, making them fun to shoot. However, I think you'll find that almost any elemental non-unique or unique assault rifle is going to be better. But I guess if you're bored and you want one of these, they can be obtained from any suitable loot source. However, you may have the best luck of finding ETech weapons in the golden chest at Sanctuary. Number 7. The Fusillade Assault Rifle from Borderlands the PreSequel. While it looks cool and even feels pretty good to shoot, the Fusillade is easily one of the worst legendaries, let alone uniques, added in Borderlands the PreSequel's Claptastic Voyage DLC. This is because the weapon trades too much of its base damage for improved fire rate and accuracy, and this kind of makes the weapon feel a bit like a pea shooter because while the projectiles themselves fire quite quickly and there could be some great DPS potential here, the problem is that the Fusillade's base damage is so low that it's impractical. What I think would improve the Fusillade would be a flat damage increase of about 50 to even 100%. Either that or some kind of unique special effect that adds a projectile multiplier. That way, the DPS could be increased to a more suitable level that would make the Fusillade a more viable weapon. But if you still want one, you can acquire a Fusillade from either the Despair or Self-Loathing mini-bosses located in the Subconscious location in the Claptastic Voyage DLC. Number 6. The Damned Cowboy Assault Rifle from Borderlands 2. So, the Damned Cowboy is quite possibly one of the most baffling assault rifles, let alone Jacob's weapons from Borderlands 2. In exchange for high base damage, the Damned Cowboy forgoes fire rates, and in that sense it's very similar to the Borderlands 2 Elephant Gun, or the Borderlands 2 Unforgiven and Rex pistols. Of the weapons that I just mentioned though, I would say that the Damned Cowboy is the worst, and that mostly stems from the fact that this weapon is an assault rifle. This basically means that you're guaranteed to have inferior critical hit bonus compared to other Jacob's pistols, shotguns, and snipers. Plus, I also wonder what the point of this weapon is when you consider that compared to a Hammerbuster with similar parts, the Hammerbuster ironically has superior base damage, albeit without the obnoxious cap to fire rate. Plus, when you consider that the Hammerbuster is guaranteed to spawn with a scope, and there's a chance that the Damned Cowboy won't, why would you even want this thing at that point? I guess if you're masochistic, the Damned Cowboy can be acquired during or after the Now You See It side quest from the Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt DLC by killing a unique stalker called Bloodtail. But since this weapon is basically a nerfed version of the Hammerbuster, and when you consider that the Hammerbuster is often a third place choice when it comes to the Jacob's Gatling gun or Becca, you gotta kinda wonder what the developers were smoking. Number 5. The Meat Grinder Combat Rifle from Borderlands 1. Not to be confused with the Meat Grinder SMG from the PreSequel, the Meat Grinder from Borderlands 1 is a pretty mediocre combat rifle that can only be obtained during the Janus Town A Brother's Love mission by defeating Janus Cobb. So, much like the Rider Sniper that's also from Borderlands 1, the Meat Grinder can't be obtained after a certain level and has to also be obtained within a certain window of a playthrough. This means that the weapon already has issues with level scaling, and because the level of this weapon caps out at like 37, and when you consider that the character's level can get as high as level 69, you've basically got yourself something that becomes obsolete too quickly. Aside from the lack of level scaling, the other problem with the meat grinder is that it trades improved damage, fire rate, and significantly larger magazine size for increased projectile spread, which in turn makes the weapon far less accurate. Ultimately, I think this weapon just becomes obsolete too quickly, while other similar unique, legendary, and pearlescent support machine gun combat rifles are just better weapons. Maybe it could get a facelift for Borderlands 3, but I don't think I'd be too upset if we never saw this thing again. Number 4. The Crybaby Assault Rifle from Borderlands the PreSequel. If you're a fan of The Binding of Isaac, I think you'll find that the Crybaby is a pretty lousy tribute. Not necessarily because the actual concept behind the weapon is bad, but it's mostly because the Crybaby just has terrible base damage and DPS potential. In fact, it's sort of like the Fusillade in that regard, as that particular assault rifle that we discussed earlier also has issues with base damage. It's honestly a shame, because the Crybaby is quite possibly one of the most unique and interesting weapons in Borderlands history. This is because the Crybaby can come with a variety of different barrels and accessories that simply can't appear on other weapons. For example, maybe you'll find a version of the Crybaby that fires 3 corrosive projectiles per shot in a horizontal pattern. Or maybe the next time you'll get a Crybaby that has really high fire rate, but all of the bullets can fire through and pierce enemies and hit the enemies behind them. Or maybe the third time you acquire this weapon, maybe it fires bullets that wobble. These unique variants are cool, and while some of them are more practical than others, the ability to have a weapon like this is awesome. It's just lame that the designers behind the Holodome DLC decided to properly balance this weapon so it wasn't considerably more powerful than your average bandit, scav assault rifle. If you want this weapon, you can get it during round 3 or the badass round of the Holodome DLC, but in my personal opinion, it's really not worth it. Number 3. The Madhouse Assault Rifle from Borderlands 2. Now, I don't know how many of you have played Borderlands 1, but a great example of how to do weapon effects involving ricochets correctly is the Orion. After all, the ability to spawn 3 projectiles that further enhance the damage is an awesome ability, and makes the Orion not only viable as a conventional sniper, but also as a great weapon to spam by simply shooting it right in front of enemies and having those ricochets hit the enemy. The Madhouse, on the other hand, is a great example of what not to do when designing your weapon with a ricochet weapon effect. Bizarrely, if you fire the Madhouse directly in front of an enemy with the intention of having the secondaries ricochet into that enemy, you're going to be in for a pretty bad time. For whatever reason, the Madhouse was designed to have the ricochet projectiles split in a 45-degree angle in both directions, meaning that your ricochets will constantly veer around enemies. Otherwise, the Madhouse is characterized by its wobbly bullets, which along with the bizarre ricochets make the weapon really impractical. But I guess if you want one of these, your best bet is to farm one from an NPC named Mad Dog located in Lynchwood. Number 2. The Bearcat Assault Rifle from Borderlands 2. What a boatload of ass! Much like the Storm Sniper, Tunguska Launcher, and Unforgiven Pistol, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to groan every single time you see this gun. Without a doubt, the biggest problem with the Bearcat is its atrocious ammo consumption. While other grenade assault rifles are known for consuming anywhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 ammo per shot, the Bearcat consumes a ridiculous 6 ammo per shot, making it totally impractical. But aside from the awful ammo consumption, the Bearcat also shares similar issues with other grenade assault rifles. After all, the Bearcat is incapable of performing critical hits, which greatly limits its damage output, and it also can't benefit from boosts to grenade damage bonus from skills and gear. So, not only are you stuck with a weapon that consumes too much ammo per shot, but its damage can't be enhanced in any meaningful way. While I would recommend that you avoid this weapon at all costs, you can get the Bearcat from virtually any enemy that's got a high chance to drop Generation 1 Pearlescence. So that means you can get a Bearcat from Legendary Loot Midgets, or oh my god what the heck, from the Digistruct Peak DLC. And finally, Number 1, the Evil Smasher Assault Rifle from Borderlands 2. So for you Borderlands 2 veterans out there, I think we can all agree that at one time, the Evil Smasher was quite possibly one of the most overpowered and sought-after pieces of gear in the entire game. And this was mostly thanks to the weapon's special effect, which would improve its base damage, fire rate, and magazine upon reloading, and these particular buffs would basically hold until you reloaded again. At one time, it was possible to get this effect to transfer to other weapons via the Evil Smasher glitch, which, if you're familiar with the current Morningstar glitch for Borderlands 2, it's basically very similar to that. However, instead of massively increasing critical hit damage, you're increasing the base damage, fire rate, and magazine size of the weapon, potentially totally improving the weapon's DPS. And on certain weapons like the Infinity, which never needed to be reloaded, you could pretty much retain the Evil Smasher special effect indefinitely and become hilariously overpowered. Obviously, Gearbox went ahead and decided to patch this exploit, and sadly, the Evil Smasher had to lose its special effect due to some of the constraints of the Unreal 3 engine. So what you have now is an assault rifle with far below average base damage and pitifully low magazine size. Now, while it's true that the Smasher's effect can still activate, it's so rare that it's really something that you can't rely on anymore like you used to be able to. If there is one weapon on this list that I'd like to see return in a new and improved state for Borderlands 3, it would definitely be this one, and if you want an Evil Smasher, you can acquire one as a quest reward upon completing the Chosen One side quest that takes place in Sawtooth Cauldron. Alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, and also, just a quick heads up, but I'm going to be doing a Q&A video tomorrow on Thursday, April 19th, 2018. So if you're interested, feel free to leave a comment with your question in the comment section below. Otherwise guys, like this video if you liked it, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, thank you all so much for your support, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.